you all heard about the movie Limitless. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that movie. So in this movie, there's this famous actor called Bradley Cooper. In the movie, he goes by the name Eddie Mora. And he's a man who's not succeeding very well in life. But cut a long story short, one day someone presents to him a small pill, scientifically known as NZT48. And Bradley takes this pill, and suddenly he's able to use 100% of his brain. And in the rest of the movie, I won't spoil it for you. Go and watch it if you haven't watched it. He's able to do these superhuman things that just enable him to start making a lot of money, to be a successful author, and all sorts of different kinds of things. We'll come back to NZD48 later. At the age of 16, I stood on a stage just like this at the end of a concert, and people were giving us a standing ovation. And that's because we had just concluded one of the first concerts to be done in a very long time in a Nairobi church. And I had gotten people so much older than me, one to write a proper script, one to coordinate music and lead the choir, and the other one to do the instrumentalists. And these people were clapping because I had been the director of that concert at the age of 16. And I started out very simply. But this ambition was not something that was always there. Because you see, I grew up in Embu. So I was born and raised in Embu. And for the first 10 years of my life, I went through St. Michael's Primary School, for those of you who might know it in Embu. And we were probably one of the better to do families there because my dad was working for government. And so, going to school, I was probably the one who had better English than everybody else and spoke very well. And then in 1989, my dad gets transferred to Nairobi to come and work for the Ministry of Planning here in Nairobi. And so I moved from St. Michael's Primary School, and guess where they bring me? They bring me to Lavington Primary School. Can you imagine that shift? I'm telling you the culture shock that I went through. I came from the place where I had the best English, but I think when I got to Lavington Primary School, I realized my English was probably a bit broken, so I had some catching up to do. I met wealthy kids. There were children of PSs, children of wealthy families running businesses and the like. And I think I became a bit shy and reserved because, this was just a totally different world for me. Something happened 2 years later, and I was then moved to another school. Until today, I have no idea why. I was moved to Nairobi Primary School. And here, I felt a little bit more comfortable. I think I felt, okay, we probably come from the same class, in this school. And something interesting is that I was put to sit next to a young gentleman, and I was told, this one is responsible, he will take care of you. His name was David Kamau. He will feature again also later in this story. And so in Nairobi Primary School, I was a bit more comfortable, made friends, and from what I learned from our alumni today, by the time we were getting to standard 8, I was starting to get a bit popular. So I was not as shy as I was in the school before. But the work that Nairobi Primary did not do, my next school finished it. I passed, and I was called to a good school. Guess which school I went to? No, I did not go to Alliance. Those of us who went to our school think our school was much better than Alliance. I was called to Nairobi School. And in this school, let me tell you, it changed everything about me. We walked into this school, despite the brutality that we went through, the bullying. On this other side, we were told, you are gentlemen. Yeah, you come from a strong heritage of a school. We are the best at rugby. When we go for funkies, we are the ones who get the best girls. All the girls want to talk to Nairobi school boys. And this constant affirmation just kept building up our confidence. I don't know if many of you know Pacherians. We are very confident. The other thing we are told is that we are not Changerians. It is at my time in Nairobi school that I had my first NZT48. Remember the pill? I had my first NZT48 moment. And I came across this book called Think Big by a gentleman called Ben Carson. Some of you may have read it. And here I was reading this book, and I can see a black man who is becoming the best at what he does in his field, a neurosurgeon, globally. And so this book, I think, totally blew my mind because everything I had seen before that in my education probably painted the white man or inventions having come from somewhere else. And so here was a black man like me who was able to excel to the top of his field. From that moment, I said, if Ben Carson can do it, then I can do it too. And that's what got me excited. I started to plug into everything possible. I was in drama club, I was in CU, I was in all sorts of things. And that play that I mentioned was produced while I was still a student at Nairobi School. And then after that, it is also during this time that something sad happened. So my mom passed away in 1996 when I was in Form 3. And due to some kind of fate, my father was a friend to somebody at the US Embassy. And so they thought it was a good idea, and they got for all of us long-term visas. And so that time, since I was still in school, it's my siblings, older and younger, who were all packed up and shipped to the US. And so I was left here finishing my studies. But when I finished my Form 4, it was time for me to go and join them. And so I'd even made applications, gotten an admission to Morehouse College, got on a plane and went to the US. While I was there, acclimatizing myself and getting to see how this life is going to be, I would be observing and telling myself, I'm not sure that this journey is going to go the way I plan to have it. Because I would see a lot of Kenyans who would go under my conditions, would struggle to finish school. And, life was not as smooth sailing as we thought. And during that time, my dad also got my calling letter from here in Kenya and then put it in the mail, and it came into the US. So I got a calling letter from Egerton University. After a lot of deliberation, we figured out, and I decided that it was probably wiser if I came back and studied in Kenya. So I got onto a plane and came back to Nairobi to attend Egerton University. Let me tell you, until today, there's people who believe I was deported. Because who goes into, to the US as a 19-year-old Kenyan and then decides to come back and attend Egerton University? Like, who does that? Let me make it very clear, the same way Kibaki came out and clarified things for us, I was not deported. And so I come back and I go to Egerton University. It's in Njoro. I think some of you heard that good things come from Nakuru. We were not too far from there. And so I get into this university, and just prior to joining, a friend of mine had joined an organization, and he had kept telling me about it. You need to join this organization. When you go to campus, I think you have a chapter of it in your university. Make sure you join it. And so I think this is when I had my second NZT48 experience. I joined an organization called ISEC. Any ISECers in the room? Very few. Yes, we tend to be few, but we do a lot of big things. And so in this organization, I meet other very, inspired, very ambitious young people. We are organizing these conferences. We are doing all these marvelous things as students. And we're also getting to travel and fundraise and do all sorts of things, interact with corporate people. And it's in ISEC that I think my ambition was just blown and made global, because we'd travel to different countries, attend conferences, and do all sorts of interesting things as students. I remember this one story where I finally made it to a conference in Germany. And at this conference, there was this white guy who was the chair of the conference. And he did such inspirational things. He, told inspirational stories, quotes, and all sorts of things. By the end of a conference, as we are closing the conference, everyone is just in tears because of just how inspired, me included, we are. And I'd look at this and I'm thinking, wow, there's people in this world who can do great things. Circumstance had it that I had one more week in Germany. And so I go back to the ISEC office and then I'm just seated there and somebody asks, we have a conference that's going on, but the chair has dropped out. Do you think you can chair a conference? I look at her and say, I think so. And so they put me on a train and send me there. They pay for my way. And I walk into this place and I end up being the chair of this conference a week later from the one I'd done before. And I was the only Black person in that conference. And so we go through. So guess what I do? I just repeat everything that I saw the other guy do. Like, I'd taken very good notes. So I just repeated everything word for word. And let me tell you, it worked like magic. Because at the closing of this conference, all these white people are crying. They're in tears. I've inspired them. I'm changing their lives. There's even one guy who walked up to me and is like, oh my God, I used to hate Black people because I had been attacked by... And then I come to this conference and the chair is Black, but you've changed my life so much. And, and we even kept touch after that. But that just opened up to my mind. If a young student from Kenya can copy-paste what was done by the person in the conference before him and make white people in Germany cry, nothing is impossible in this world. Now I'd taken my pill and I was ready to go for the rest of the world. And so I continued my ISEC career. By the time I finished my ISEC career, I had broken a few records. I was the first president of ISEC in Kenya from a university outside Nairobi. I did it while I was still in Egerton University. I had traveled to over 21 countries around the world and conferences and gotten to see a lot of things. And then I was fortunate enough to get to work in Uganda and Norway just as I graduated. And so having seen all these things around the world and having that mindset that nothing is impossible, after I finished my time in Norway, something had kept nagging me because every time I traveled in Europe and all sorts of things, I was very young, but I had quite some responsibility and earning some good money. And I would always get questions from the white people like, you're from Africa, but you sound really smart. And in my head, I'm like, are we not supposed to be? Did you go to a private university or private school? No, I did not. I am your average Kenyan, and there were so many people so much smarter than me. And I began to realize the world looked at us as second-rate citizens because all they see about Africa is about poverty, death, war, and, calamities. And so something kept bothering me, and I said, I need to go back home again and do something about it. And so, of course, got back on the plane and came back. And I came back to something that, remember that responsible desk mate that I was put next to in Standard 6 in Nairobi Primary? David Kamau. We had co-founded a company called Wild International. And this time when I came back in 2007, we started working on the business together. Wild International, I'm about to let out a secret into the public. The WILD stands for World Youth Leadership Development. So when we were building this company, we were like, we're going to train all the youth in the world. And we were ambitious. We knew we could do it globally. But as time went by, people in our circles, I remember very well, Pam Mutua from PSI and Susan Irungu from, Oilibia, took a chance on us and asked us, can you train, our regular staff? And we did, and that just opened up the world for us and made it possible for us to start doing a lot of corporate business, and the business started to grow. But as we did this, we began to realize that the people who really needed help were people who were running businesses who were indigenous Kenyans, the entrepreneurs. And so we started to run programs where I would bring entrepreneurs in, take them through coaching, take them through training, take them through programs, and would begin to see people's businesses grow in leaps and bounds. And this just kept validating the fact that, look, we can do these great things. We used to ask people, why not? Why are you only dreaming of being a Kenyan company? Why not do it globally? And we do have clients who took that seriously and just started to build their businesses to the extent they would start going regional and start going global as our clients. Of course, this was also rubbing off on us because if we are telling people they can do this, we should also be doing it ourselves. And so through a period of time, we were able to put together a concept that turned out to be very unique. And by 2020, after we, raised about 50 million shillings plus, we set up something called the Sandbox, which is what I do today. And so in this Sandbox, what it is that it's a one-stop shop. We bring together different professionals who are non-competing. So we have one lawyer, one ICT advisor, one marketer, one HR person, and we've brought them together all under one roof so that we build this one-stop shop for entrepreneurs. And as soon as we did this, we realized nobody else in the world is doing this. It's 5 years later, we still can't find anyone doing what it is that we are doing. And so we realized we had come up with a global innovation. And as we began to exploit that, long story short, last year, we set up Sandbox in Atlanta, Georgia, in the US, and we have one that's up and running. So we have experts who are also running there the same way we're doing it here. And since then, other people were inspired across the continent. So we have a partner in South Africa and experts in South Africa. We have Zambia coming up soon. We have Uganda and Tanzania. We have Ethiopia. We have Nigeria. We have Ghana, Senegal, UK, and Ireland. Okay? Because of that ambition where we said we can do things globally, today it is a reality. The dreams that 16-year-old boy had after reading Think Big today are up and running as a reality. And we're not stopping here. We still have other places to conquer. We still have India. We still have South America. We still have Southeast Asia. And we're not going to stop until we get to China. In fact, I have a very interesting conversation about China. Because when we met this group earlier when we were preparing for this, I was telling them that China is going to be a destination. Guess who contacts me on Wednesday? Somebody from China, and they want to partner with Sandbox and help us to get there. And so it's not been smooth sailing as a journey. There's, of course, a lot of things that have happened that have been challenges along the way. In 2007, I remember just during the post-election violence, as we were waiting for the results and, the mess to be figured out, I started to feel a sense of anxiety and, sadness that was just not going away. So I was like, something is not right. And so, I go to a doctor to get checked out. And after a series of seeing quite a number of specialists, I find out that I'm diagnosed with clinical depression and anxiety. And so that began a very long journey of trying to build this global business with all these global ambitions, but occasionally just having to deal with the challenges of a mental health illness that, is very debilitating, especially for people who use their brain, to do the work. And so, this entire journey was... It was a difficult journey, and there were moments, very dark moments where there's fear and, what if people find out I'm doing all this and, I'm struggling with these issues. But if it wasn't, for heroes, like I have an amazing psychiatrist and clinical psychologist, therapist, who have tag-teamed to help me. And the thing I like about them is that they did not look at me and say, slow down. They figured out, how do we keep up with this guy and keep him okay, just so that as he's building these things, he can be able to do them. And so Dr. Mutiso and Dr. Mumbi have been amazing partners on this journey. The other big challenge we've really had as we've been doing this is that from the beginning we had said we are going to do this business with integrity. Shock on you, Kenya is not the kind of place that values doing business with integrity. And that's something that has just been a thorn in our flesh even up until today. You pitch for work, they tell you you've been the best and you've been selected, and then you start getting calls from the side. People want to sit and have a talk about. One told us, wapi mbuzi ya wazee? Mbuzi ya wazee means where's the bribe that goes to the, the wazees. I don't know who these wazees are in all these companies and government agencies. But we've stuck it out. We've stuck to our principles. We said we are going to do business with integrity, and we have somehow worked through it, and survived. It has been very costly at times. We've lost deals. On a personal front, I've ended up in so many court cases because of refusing to bribe cops about traffic offenses. I don't know why I'm always getting into traffic, challenges. In fact, very recently, I was in Molo because I had just driven, to Shags and back, and I had gotten arrested, and these guys insisted you have to come. So it's either you bribe or, you show up. And so I show up in Molo, I'm charged, I'm given my fine, but as I'm going to pay it, they put me down in the cell with other hardcore thugs. Can you imagine? And I was dressed similar to how I'm dressed today. And so all these guys are wondering, Pastor, mbona umeletwa hapa ndani? In fact, they were so sympathetic that one of them stood up, because a lot were standing because there's no place to sit. Huh? One of them stood up and like, Pastor, wewe huwezi simama. Hebu kaa tu hapa chini. But I've had to go through such inconveniences because of that stand, but still stick to our values and say, this country is going to change when people like us stick to our guns. Yeah. And so in this entire journey, I've realized that if you're passionate about doing something great, the possibility is there. There may be challenges that you'll go through, like I have. There may be mistakes that you'll make. In fact, you're going to make a lot of them. And if you're not meeting any obstacles or limits on your path, you're probably not trying hard enough. Because a journey of achieving great things comes with a lot of obstacles, a lot of limits, and it's for us to break through them or fight through them or jump over them or whatever it is, but not let those limits stop us. Those limits are what build you up to have the muscle and the strength for the next level of the journey that you want to move in. And so I've learned a lot of things. I've learned to say yes and take up opportunities, even if it's something we've never done before. I've learned to just go out and just do and learn as we go along, and things will work out as we go along. And I've learned that it also takes a village to especially overcome the challenges that you're going to go through on your journey to greatness. This is not something that you can do alone. For me, if it wasn't for my village, and my village consists of many people, starting with right in my house, and my wife is here, Grace. She's seated right there. Thank you very much for being part of that village. We have 4 amazing children who make the house very lively. But we have a whole bunch. I have my boys, Ranja and Frank and Pato. And we have a group of people called My Peoples, who are couples who we walk together with on the journey of marriage. And I have people from my church. I have people from Sandbox. We have a whole community of experts that we've been working on this together. I have the staff team at Sandbox. And, there's just this entire village. And I realized if you're going to be on a journey to greatness and achieve that limitless, you need a village to be able to walk with you. And so at this point, I want us to do something interesting. I want you to hold out your hand like this. And I want you to imagine that you're holding a pill called NZT48. That pill has all the ingredients that it takes for you to be limitless. In that pill, it says, you are made in the image of God. It doesn't matter what your background or color is. You have everything it takes to achieve great things. And so I'm going to make you do something silly. I want you to take that pill and swallow it. I hope that at this point, I am part of your NZT48 moment. May you go forth and be limitless. Thank you. Thank you.